morning.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. As we head on into our next segment this morning, we will be chatting with Pastor Clive Dottin, and he should be joining us on the line now. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
All
I'm in
right. So as
Brooklyn.
we get the conversation started this morning, we're diving right on in. We currently have what is being described as that, unusual conversation. Some would say it's not going as it should go. Some would say fighting the good fight. How would you describe what you have observed based on the interaction between the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister in recent times on these very topical issues?
Well, let me say good morning. I'm in Brooklyn, and thanks to Anton Parks for getting me on. We had some difficulties earlier on, so I am very happy to be on. I am not happy with what is taking place, particularly in Tobago and the dialogue between the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister. And of course, I created a storm, apparently, on Facebook when I talked about the gladiatorial skills of the chief secretary and planting a dagger in the heart of hypocrisy. Because in the first place, I never even knew there was a white collar crime unit. I knew about the Professional Standards Bureau, I knew about the Police Complaints Authority, and there are other groups. But I never knew about this white collar unit. But it is not the best thing that is happening. However, I maintain there are people who know about all the rules of the House. I am studying what Mrs. Dr. Angus Soyafat has said. I have to examine that in greater detail. But I am saying that, for example, if there's a white collar unit, the reason we have so much crime, particularly in Trinidad, is because of the godfathers of the drug trade, the high level of corruption that is being acknowledged by all parties, I believe. And therefore, I am suggesting that a lot of effort could be put in Trinidad to end the mega level of corruption. Perhaps makes us one of the most corrupt nations in the Western Hemisphere. And I'm suggesting that they have a lot of work to do there. Now, when I heard about the police descending upon the home of Farley Augustine and other individuals, just yesterday I heard of another situation by a beach where 4 police jeeps, descending on another member, I understand, or functionary of the Tobago House of Assembly. Now, it looks to me that the real issue here, all right, the politics of it all, I see an attempt to demonize the chief secretary. This is a young man, and I want to repeat that. This is a young man who has come into the political space at a very challenging time. And I mean, if you have evidence to lock him up and he has done something, terrible and wrong, he has been unethical, therefore deal with it as you deal with anybody else in Trinidad. And I repeat that, as anybody else in Trinidad. But to my mind, some people are painting him as a common criminal, and I object to that. That's number one. On the issue of the audio tape and the propaganda, he has come out, he explained himself. We may agree, we may not disagree. But a lot of people have the impression. I have a person, an expert in security, and he has been advising me, and he tells me the real target of the last police assault on Farley Augustine's home had to be not just the audio tape, but the videotape that was released the next day. Because I saw where Farley had a town meeting and mentioned, by tomorrow, you will have, all the details and we'll settle it once and for all. So I am saying, if there's objection to what Farley Augustine presented in the House with the whistleblower, and perhaps I should mention here that whistleblower must need some protection. Now, the government has responded by saying this guy has been a witness, to another crime scene or what have you, another criminal activities of apparently a state witness. But I am saying that clearly what we have here, to my mind, is a classic attempt to destroy the Tobago House of Assembly Chief Secretary. That is what I see. That is my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm seeing an attempt to demonize him, to characterize him in a certain way, that is not very fair to him. And we have to watch that, especially those of us who are in Trinidad. We seem to think that if you destroy um, Fali Augustine, therefore you destroy corruption in both Trinidad and Tobago. That's a false narrative. It will take decades, to deal with that issue of corruption in Trinidad and Tobago. And I don't think it is getting better. I think it is getting worse.
Okay, Pastor Lawton, always a pleasure chatting with you. There's some who may say that this is your stance based on the fact that you are an Adventist minister and that the chief secretary has also professed his Christianity, this particular persuasion, being an Adventist. Is it because you're both Adventists that this is the root, or this is your belief, this is your stance?
Listen, I am not a neophyte in Trinidad and Tobago. I have taken very, unpopular decisions in the past. Doesn't matter whether he's an Adventist or not. And I want to say that quite frankly, whether I know him or not. We hardly talk on the phone. We hardly have, I know some people in Tobago who have been speaking to me, but I can't say I have an ultra close relationship with Fali Augustine at all. To my mind, the fact that he's a Seventh-day Adventist is not the issue whatsoever. What I see here is a youth. Let me tell you something. When I think Fali's in his 40s, I could be wrong, you can correct me. When I saw him getting
50s.
into political space, I trembled because I understand, how daggers could be pointed at you, as a youth, and people could think we could do him what we want, we could frustrate him at every level, we can withhold funds, etc., etc. I have been following this situation from the days of A&R Robinson. I was in the house when, the term ambassador extraordinary was used by N.R. Robinson in the days of Winston Murray and Robinson sitting in the house when they controlled both seats, Robinson Tobago East and Winston Murray in Tobago West. So I have not just come upon the scene, and I am saying, here's a young man who has made a mistake, all right? He has admitted to it. And I am saying, I don't see the need, all right, to treat him as a common criminal. I have a real problem with that. And what he has revealed, whether we like it or not, whether it should be in the house or not, all right, is very interesting stuff. And I am saying what we need to have is a commission of inquiry, all right, comprised of very honest people. We still have honest people and we still have people at a level in integrity, all right, that should investigate those charges. I mean, the papers in Trinidad, the Express and the Guardian, have described it as a bombshell. And I posted, that, he's an extraordinary gladiator because even attempt to defend himself against the might of the titans in Trinidad, all right, is a very, very significant step that he has taken. Whether or not he should have released those videotapes, I leave that to the political scientists to discuss and the constitutional experts. But when I listened, and I listened, it was sent to me, all right, while he was doing it. And when I listened to it, I mean, I was shocked, all right. And I am saying what he has revealed requires a comprehensive, consistent, and honest analysis that can only be done by a commission of inquiry.
So I want us to dive into that a little bit more. The Prime Minister's
Yes.
response is that he will be seeking all legal opinions to investigate whether or not, under the circumstances, that the Chief Secretary would have abused, in terms of that privilege or the cover that comes with the House of Assembly in terms of what was presented. And I want to tie in very clearly. You spoke to in your last line in that post, this youth knows how to plant a dagger in the heart of hypocrisy. Let me get your perspectives as we dive in. I want to
Well, let me
understand
tell
better
you.
what was meant by that.
Well, I will tell you. I have posted before this issue with Fali, Fali, Fali. The Prime Minister says everybody talking, the opposition talking about Faris, Faris, Faris. But I'm saying he's only talking about Fali, 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 the two F's. I have said, all right, on various platforms that what we have in Trinidad, all right, is that we have slick and sick corruption. One group practices slick corruption. They know how to use, invisible channels, so to speak, so they wouldn't be caught and charged. That's slick corruption, and the other is corruption in your face. So I have said it, the two major parts. I have said that over and over again. It is well known that institutions are being permeated, including our security institutions, by the issue of corruption. Now, I want to tell you this. Talking about the police, all right, and the political directorate and institutions that are supposed to be independent, all right. I think the Prime Minister's response has been basically cosmetic. What I want us to deal with is the substance in the videotapes. All right. I want us to deal with that. The other thing I wanted to deal with is the possibility. All right. Now, I know Commissioner Christopher and the Prime Minister, and they have denied, all right. He has denied having an influence, a direct influence over the police and controlling them. But I want to say we have to be sure of that. All right. We have to be very sure of that in this country. What we never want to have is the political directorate influencing, all right, the police service and facilitating, all right, opponents of the ruling party, all right, getting a bly with the police service to go after an opponent, an rival. I want to say something else. Folks, I repeat, I'm no neophyte in this space. When I served on the Service Commission in 2006 and 2009, all right, there was a member of the Police Service Commission. We were in the process of selecting a police commissioner. And what happened is that a member of the Police Service Commission is no longer in the Police Service Commission, all right, indicated to us that the Prime Minister would like us to go in a certain direction. All right. He was actually using a source, a friend who was on the Police Service Commission, to indicate to us what his choice of commission would be. And that if there were any problems, because the candidate that was being supported by the then Prime Minister Manning, there was an expose on him in terms of his relationship with Rudy Giuliani. I don't know if you recall that. And we were quite clear in the Police Service Commission, headed by now deceased Christopher Thomas, Ambassador Christopher Thomas, that the Prime Minister is not a member of the Police Service Commission, and we must be allowed, I repeat, to do our job unfettered by the state. I am clear of that. When the independence of institutions like the police service, all right, when the possibility exists that there's a compromise and a blurring of the line and they're no longer independent, but just the thought that it could be political interference, in the functioning of a sacred institution, who should be clear of political interference, all right, to influence. I am saying there's a red flag here. And I am saying that has to be thoroughly investigated. Whether or not he should have brought it to the House, let the political science determine. But the fact is, there's a reality, there's a whistleblower, he's making some damning allegations, and that must be thoroughly investigated.
Now, we've also seen in the past, Pastor Dottin, where the office, and I want to use the term, the office of the Prime Minister has, one could say, interfered within the Tobago House of Assembly's affairs. I want to get your thoughts on that, based on what you just said a little while ago. And I'm not just speaking here to Dr. Keith Rowley being the Prime Minister this time, but the office, the Prime Minister, whomever he or she is, was, is, will be. Your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, you have hit the nail on the head. This is really not the first time that these allegations have been made. I mean, from the days of Robinson come down, all right? Days of Wilbert Winchester and the rest. You had that, days of Murray, all right? And I am saying that Trinidad must do a thorough historical analysis of the mistakes we would have made. I see Trinidad as a brother, the elder brother, and Tobago as the younger brother. All right, you have a brother and you have an ex brother or you have a big sister and a small sister. All right. We well know that Tobago depends. You have to get, by law now, and I repeat that, by law, all right, if you don't give Tobago what is constitutionally due and appropriate, then you are guilty of breaking the law. And there are many ways it could be used to frustrate whichever leadership, whichever party is in Tobago. And I am saying that the executive that resides in Trinidad, essentially, all right, must be very careful about that. Because in the first place, I repeat about the youth of Farley Augustine. And I see some fellow Seventh-day Adventists who support the ruling party going after him. They go after me also. They have been peppering me, but I am stronger than that. I have enormous faith in God, and I want to maintain my sense of integrity. Not because I live in Trinidad, I must be automatically and spontaneously judgmental on Farley Augustine and his team. I believe they deserve a right to function. I believe they deserve the right, to get support from Trinidad consistently. I believe that if they raise an issue, this is the second time. You had the whole expose the first time when Farley spoke and admitted to the propaganda. All right. You had an issue of contracts and being awarded, and he's saying that he was told to give a certain contractor a particular sum of money, and he revealed that a lot of money that was received, in some instances, there was poor quality work that the present assembly and its officers have investigated. That is very worrying. And now you have, on the heels of that revelation, all right, and a lot of it has not been denied. They have the auditor's report, all right, that has some damning information in it too. And now you have the whistleblower. I am saying there's an ugly trend here that has to be examined, and that people should not just talk about whether it was the appropriate place or not. They must deal with the substance of the revelation. Is it a hoax? Is the whistleblower telling lies? What about the security of the whistleblower? Not or of whistleblowers in the first place, because this is going to be a signature case, How this whistleblower is treated. It will either encourage or discourage potential whistleblowers. And I am saying, I am concerned, and I don't want to be part of any Trinidad posse advantaging, all right, the leadership of the Tobago House of Assembly, all right? And I am saying he has a right to be heard. And if we have to settle this thing, there must be a thorough inquiry. The police service must do its best, all right? And if it is not independent enough, we must have another group of people appointed by the state to investigate this, to find out what is the whistleblower. Another thing I want to tell you, I was on the specially appointed commission in 1993 that investigated the allegation of a drug cartel in the police service. I don't even remember that, when Rodwell Murray, the ACP, made damning allegations about senior people in the police service involved in a drug cartel, from distribution, all right, to importation and all of that, and protecting certain godfathers of the drug trade. And I am saying, I will die saying this. We need to investigate the role of the godfathers of the drug trade importing cocaine. We just had $234 million worth of cocaine found. No poor boy behind the bridge in Laventille or in Mayaro or in Arima, that is a very hot spot right now, imported that. And I'm saying who was arrested was a middle-level guy. We need to get to the top, all right? And we've had relatives of individuals in high office, all right, being found with significant levels of cocaine in Port of Spain West. And that too has to be investigated. So I welcome the white collar unit, and I hope they don't only focus on Farley, but they focus across the board.
Pastor Clive Dottin, before we close this morning, I want to get your perspective. You've been around long enough in terms of your experience observing the politics. We have seen the times of Orville London taking up as chief secretary in 2001, a PNM administration in Tobago, UNC then Basdio Pandey as prime minister. We saw once again coming within the period of Orville London's term, the People's Partnership, Kamala Prasad Bisesa. We've always said over time, when there's different administrations between Tobago and Trinidad, we see some natural challenges happening. What would you say is the distinct difference this time around, which is now a Farley Augustine-led administration in Tobago, while there's a PNM administration in central government. Once again, a difference. What would you say is the distinct difference this time around?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mentioned the days of Murray and the issue Murray and Robinson, the days of Pamela Nicholson. I want to mention that. The difference this time around is that you have a political directorate, all right, who is accused of deliberately interfering with the operations of the chief secretary and his team and exerting political influence and directing the police service. That is a very worrying trend. I'm saying that to Trinidad and Tobago, no matter how, if you're a sycophant of the ruling party or any other party, that is a worrying trend. That should disturb every right thinking citizen who appreciates what is required, the integrity and the decency that is required, all right, in terms of preserving the principles of democracy and the law of natural justice. That is vitally important. And I pray for Farley, because I could tell you, whoever was there at that age and had that level of courage that he's displaying. And when he makes a mistake, we pull him up. I am not saying when he makes a mistake, you don't pull him up. He was pulled over the coals for the audio tape. All right. And I'm saying we have several, parliamentarians in the last 40 years who have made, enormous errors. All right. And some of them still around. Okay. So I want to say why you have to demonize and criminalize this young man. And I read some of what was said about me recently here, because I'm from Trinidad, so I should take a side, you understand? Well, I am saying, let us protect the independence of our institutions. If Farley has to go, let him go. All right? If you have to charge him, charge him. But I am saying it's a worrying scenario. I repeat that, and you're all lovers of democracy. It is a worrying scenario that we could have a potential interference between the executive and an independent institution such as the police service, and one wonders what else goes on. So
Okay,
I'm seeing
thank
a
you.
difference here. I'm saying that is the major difference here. It's a damning allegation.
Thank you, Pastor Clive
Thank
Dottin.
you very
Always a
much, then.
pleasure chatting with you. Thank you
God
for
bless.
sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
God bless. God bless.
God bless indeed. And so there we have it, Julian. And some say that we've been missing the meat of the matter, that the focus has been shifted, and our eyes are on the secondary matters and not on where it should be.
Well, I suspect that will be a matter of perspective, because for some, the focus is on the audio, which they are directed at, and the police doing their relevant investigations. For some, they've seen the audio, they've heard it, but beyond the police investigation with the audio, there are serious questions regarding an abuse of power. And then further to that, the most recent revelations by the chief secretary in the House about involvements, including a number of high-ranking officials mentioned, who have all responded thus far to deny any such claim. So it's really left to be seen what would be next in the circumstances of this entire matter involving the chief secretary, and certainly going further now to that relationship between the chief secretary and the prime minister. More importantly, how Tobago may or may not be affected